So I just bought an all-electric vehicle. Here are the first 5 things that I've noticed. And yes, that intro is true. I just purchased my first all-electric vehicle. This one behind me happens to be the Ford Mustang Mach-e. Now, if you guys have been following along with the channel or you know me, just throughout the automotive industry, I'm a Jeep guy, I'm a truck guy, I'm a high horsepower, Hemi swap, anything else you can imagine. So if you wanna, give me a little bit of crap for buying one of these electric vehicles, I would say that I like to know the products that I'm gonna be talking about. So for me to see how they operate, I figured I'll pick one up and try it out for a little while. And I've got a couple other plans in the Jeep world. So in the meantime, I'm gonna save a little bit of gas, try out one of these, and let you guys know all my reviews on it. Now, today's video, I wanted to talk about some of the reasons why I bought this, but overall, just the first 5 things that I've noticed owning an electric vehicle. The first thing I've noticed with an electric vehicle, and just me as a driver, is that there is no sound coming out of this. Now, I'm a big modification guy, so we throw exhaust on, we do Hemi swaps, we do all sorts of crazy things with my personal vehicles. So hopping in a vehicle that makes no sound was a very big change of pace for me. I think the biggest thing that I'm used to is listening to your RPMs and not telling me inherently, without even looking at the speedometer, how fast I'm going. There's no noise, there's no engine, there's no exhaust, there's no transmission even to shift. All you hear is a very slight electric motor sound and the climate if you have AC or heat on. Here's what it sounds like to start the engine. That's it. Ford did a lot of cool sounds in here, but that's what it starting up those electric motors. My number 2 thing that I've learned owning this for just about 2 weeks now is that this now became my new gas cap. So everything that is done to charge this is right up here in the front left fender. And what I've really noticed is that I don't miss stopping at gas stations. I know Ryan behind the camera and I talked and he said, man, you're never gonna miss having to stop at a gas station to fill up your truck. And I'll be quite frank with you, I do not. If you guys sitting behind this screen are looking at me saying, you know what, I've got a longer commute too, this part is probably good for you because the biggest thing I've noticed is the cost savings in fuel. Depending on where you guys are state-wise, you can do the quick math and you already know what you're filling up per week. The reason this is my number 2 is because not only is it saving me time, I don't have to waste at a gas station in the morning. Even when I stop to grab a coffee, it just takes a really short amount of time. But number 2, I'll tell you at the end how much money I'm saving from this just right away of having a fully electric vehicle compared to my gas truck. So my third thing that I've noticed after owning this for a few weeks now is the performance of an electric vehicle. Now, if you guys have never had a chance to sit behind the wheel of a Mustang Mach-e or a Tesla or a fully electric vehicle that makes some serious power, you're not gonna really get the true feeling of what these make you experience in the driver's seat. It's an instantaneous torque that relies on dual motors or a single motor in the rear, and it really lays down the power very quickly. Normally in a gasoline engine, you're waiting until your RPMs get up to their peak performance, and that's where you're gonna get the complete torque and the complete horsepower that your vehicle has to output. With an electric vehicle, it's right off the bat. So imagine an RC car, when you pull the trigger, it's the instantaneous, as much power as it has to offer, and then it keeps winding out until it reaches its top speed. Now, one of the biggest misconceptions of a fully electric vehicle is that they are slow and underpowered. And I can tell you guys that that misconception is not completely invalid if you look back in the prior years. When you had vehicles like the Prius, some of the early Fiat 500 electric vehicles that had a very limited range and they weren't very quick. Let's just say that to say it lightly. But these things are completely adapted to speed, they're adapted to performance, and I'll be honest with you, they're just fun to drive. So if you guys are used to your standard internal combustion engine, you know that you have to get the RPMs up higher into that peak range to really utilize all of your horsepower and torque. With an electric vehicle, that's not the case. This is instantaneous torque right off the gate. If you've ever driven an RC car and pulled the trigger on it, you know just how fast they start off. That's the exact way with these. They'll start off with all the power right out and all the way through, so you don't lose anything while driving one of these. So one of the biggest questions I got asked even before owning an electric vehicle is how much does the weather affect the range of the vehicle? And when I say this is true and inherent with all electric vehicles, so it's not specific to my Mustang Mach-e behind me. It is inherent with all electric vehicles, anything that has a battery on board. Now, what I've noticed in Pennsylvania here, we like to have what's called like a fake summer, a fake winter, a real winter. We just go back and forth. One day it could be 70 degrees and the next day it is snowing. And that was true in the past 2 weeks of owning this. And what I will tell you is that in this Mustang Mach-e behind me, the EPA estimated range is 211 miles. I've seen some days of that range or better, and I've also seen some days that were in that 160 to 170 miles on a full charge. So I can tell you that the weather does in fact change the range on there, and you're going to change some of your charging habits and your driving habits just to be more active to what the weather is outside of you. It's not a huge fault of these, it's just with the technology the way it is right now in all electric vehicles, that's what we're seeing. Like I said, not a big impact for me. I charge at home and then I can top it off other places. So just be aware that it does affect it a little bit, and I've noticed it now personally driving one. So as you know, if you made it this far in the video, I did come from a full-size pickup truck, and my commute every day was, let's just say, lengthy. On an average week with the gas prices the way they are now, I was paying a little bit over $100 in fuel per week, and that added up to about $450 to $500 per month. Now, while I could afford it, it just became kind of a nuisance to me to pay that much just to make it back and forth to work. When I looked at one of these, I really didn't check out a couple things before I bought one. I looked at, obviously I'd have to charge it. It came with a 110 volt plug, which goes into your standard outlet, and it also came with a 240 volt adapter as well. What I didn't understand when I first bought this is how slow it would be on 110 volt. Now, it's not too slow that you couldn't make it a viable option, but for me, wanting to recharge from a 0 to 100% overnight, that 240 volt outlet and the adapter that Ford gives you was something that I wanted to look into. The next thing you might want to do if you're considering one of these is look at an electricity bill that you have for an average month. In an electricity bill, if you go onto your account, which I rarely do to actually look at the whole PDF of the bill, you can see what your kilowatt hours are being charged at. In my area, mine are 6 to 7 cents, which is actually extremely cheap. And with this battery being a 68 kilowatt hour battery, multiply 68 times 6 cents, and you're looking at just over $4 with the 10% coefficient of leakage of the electricity. So I can tell you that $4 to $5 to fill up for a 211 miles, a lot cheaper than half of a full tank in a truck. Now with that though, I did want to install a larger charging plug in my home. So as I was saying before, each vehicle and even each trim per vehicle has different charge rates based on the 110 volt, the 240 volt, as well as an almost standalone system that Ford makes for an additional fee in your home. Now when I consulted with a good friend, an electrician of mine, there's a couple things that you want to be aware of. The service in your house does matter. So depending if you have a 100 amp, a 200 amp, if you have a large box, you're going to need to pull some amperage off that in order to run the line to charge these vehicles. Now I personally had to run out of my box and use about 50 foot of a really thick 6.3 gauge wire and go all the way to the corner of my garage. There's a nice 240 volt there with a NEMA 1450 plug, and then I just have it plugged into my standard Ford kit that came with this with that 240 volt block. Now what I found is that I wanted to be able to charge quickly on the weekends. I wasn't too concerned throughout the week because my daily commute, I could top it off with 110 volt at night and not have to install anything. I could get enough range to get me back and forth to work and still do it at that slower pace. My fear is that on the weekend, if I wanted to travel somewhere a little bit further, I'd be able to top this thing off completely every night and start off my day with a full battery. I'm kind of one of those guys, I didn't want to have range anxiety, so I wanted to make sure every night I was getting topped off. But those are some things that you want to consider as far as charging there, and these are overall just my first 5 things that I've noticed owning an electric vehicle. Now I plan on doing some more content on the Mach-e behind me. I've already done a few things to this, and I plan on potentially even putting wheels and tires on it to really see how you can modify these vehicles too, to give them a personalized touch to what you're looking for. So if you guys like Jeeps, trucks, electric vehicles, anything automotive, definitely subscribe. If it's your first time here, thanks for dropping in. And if you're already subscribed, thanks to you too. It makes my life and Ryan's life behind the camera really fun to see all the comments below and all the likes that we get on our videos. So if you have an idea for something else you'd like to see on this particular vehicle, or maybe another one in our fleet, drop that below as well. Until next time, I am Matt from Susquehanna Automotive. I'll catch you on the next one.